moved into the 40s, Hitler started to make double deals because the Necromaton and Dramies approached him. And they started to promise him that they would lead him to ancient relics, the Templar prizes. And they did. They showed him some stuff. They gave him some stuff, and that's still buried out there someplace. You know, the Nazis actually had some of the ancient relics from Atlantis because they used the Necromaton and Dramies used them for barter to convince Hitler and his group to do some double dealing for them. And what the Dramies wanted was essentially getting rid of all these people. Why don't you get rid of those Drac families too, the ones that the Zetas wanted protected? So Hitler started to do that on behalf of the Andramis, because the Andromedes were paying him with some knowledge, mystical knowledge, and some of the relics from Atlantis. So this didn't settle really well with the Zetas. They got very upset, in fact. So they worked with the Allies to make sure Hitler was taken down. What was interesting before that, when the Dracs were assisting Hitler, one of the ways they were assisting him was having the Illuminati in the Allied countries finance the Hitler movement. Literally, the United States Illuminati, the European Illuminati. While we're fighting these guys, the Illuminati guys are taking money from us and giving them to them to keep their movement going. So this is some of the sleight of hand that's been going on, you know, with our politics. What was really bizarre was what happened with the whole, the Pearl Harbor leading to Hiroshima and all of that thing. What happened with this was at the points where in the 1930s the Zetas were expanding and activating their Falcon APIN system. Now this APIN system had some major sites that were more important than others, that had primary links that were stronger and larger than some of the smaller ones. One of the biggest ones and most important ones, if they were going to completely spread their, activate their matrix around the globe, was located in Nagasaki, Japan. Interestingly, not Hiroshima, Nagasaki. And because the Necromaton and Dramies were getting a little nervous at this point, because the Dracs had come in, the Zetas on behalf of the Dracs had come in, they'd literally gotten control of the Illuminati World Management Team, and they were starting to get control of the grids. And the Andramis didn't like that too much. It was becoming a nuisance and a problem. So the Necromaton were going to build bases. One of them was going to be beneath, like in the waters around and beneath Nagasaki, so they could set up their own sonic system and block the Zetas from further activating the full Falcon grid. That didn't settle very well with the Zetas. The Necromaton were also going to put a base over in Hawaii, in the Hawaiian waters, and they were going to control certain networks on the Falcon through the ley line grids. By having these bases here, they were going to stop the Falcon from fully spreading its wings. Well, that was the agenda the Necromaton had at the moment anyway. So what was done was a interesting little deal where the Zeta groups approached their Illuminati races, because they had collectives here, they had collectives in Japan, they have them all over the place. It's not one nationality, has Zeta races and another has an Anunnaki. There are dominant ones, but really they're scattered throughout. So the Zetas approached both the Japanese Illuminati and the United States Illuminati. They told them what was going to go down. They told Japan to invade, to give us an excuse to go into the war. We knew, certain levels of our Illuminati knew that was coming. In fact, there were even messages sent when those fleets were coming in. They were spotted, they were seen by U.S. troops, and the information was sent back. But it was received, but it was never acknowledged having been received. So we got a surprise attack.
In the case of New York City.
I mean,
there were 9 messages.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't even talk about that yet. So we have this situation, this drama created. The purpose of the drama was the Zetas, who were in power at the time for the Drac agenda, mobilized their Illuminati on both sides of the game to create a war game so they could, at one point, first of all, they stopped the Necromaton from building a base over in the Hawaiian area because there was so much scrutiny at that point and so much military presence in that point. They weren't going to be able to quietly build an underground base without getting spotted. So they weren't able to build the Necromaton weren't able to build their base off the coast of Hawaii. And that led to, after some other fancy dealings with other countries like Hitler and things like that, it led to, this was what they really wanted to do. The Necromaton had succeeded to some degree in sealing off the Nagasaki port interface that went with the Falcon matrix. They didn't fully have a base there yet, but they'd started to build one, and they had what's like a frequency fence or cloaking shield. Now, if that cloaking shield was on there, the Zetas couldn't activate it. So they had to get something big enough and powerful enough, and they didn't have the grids fully activated yet to do the sonics the way they do now. If they were going to get that sonic power in the grids, they had to have all of these online. But if you drop a nuclear bomb on top of one of them, it tends to leave a weakness in those kind of fields that will allow mild sonics, which they did have access to shatter it. So they went after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Hiroshima was very interesting. It had a whole little collective of Necromaten and Andrami Illuminati hybrid races, but the majority of the populations of Hiroshima were of the U race descent. They were Magi Grail Line Indigos that were grid guardians, and they wanted to get rid of those and get rid of the competing Illuminati while they were at it. So they took out Hiroshima, but what they were really after was Nagasaki, because they needed to get that bomb dropped on those sites to weaken the force field that was over their port interface system, so they could then use the mild sonics they had available to completely flatten the force field so they could activate that site and get their supersonic waves available. What they've done by activating the full matrix of the Falcon, they